Hello and welcome into the Hunt Nebraska cabin. We are just hours, maybe a couple days away from the start of the November firearm deer season. But we're here to answer some questions, talk a little bit of safety tips, techniques, all that type of stuff. I'm Hershey, but we've got more than just me in here. So let's go around the room real quick and we'll start on your left side and kind of work our way across for getting to know everybody.
Yeah, I'm Travis Shepler with the Law Enforcement Division.
And I'm Kyle Gasson, the Hunter Education Coordinator here for the state of Nebraska.
Again, I'm Hershey. We're all with the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission. We've had some questions today that we're going to cover. I've got some extra questions that I added. Hopefully that's all right to kind of cover some ground from beginning, because we got some new deer hunters this year, too, those that have been doing it for quite a few years as well. And now we're going to get into the questions.
Yeah, so the regulation on hunter orange, you have to have at least 400 square inches on your head, chest, and back. And it can be a combination of the three. It can be camouflage hunter orange, but you have to wear that while you're firearms deer hunting. That includes muzzleloader hunting as well.
Now, where do we see people kind of make the mistake, especially as the day warms up?
It's usually this hat. They'll start off with, well, I thought you had one just here a second ago. They start the morning off wearing the lovely stocking caps, and then they get hot, take off the stocking cap, either don't put a cap on, and now they're missing that part of orange on your head, because it does have to be head, chest, and back. Doesn't have to be 400 in each part, but just all three need to have some orange on it.
Yeah, here in Nebraska, we've got a really great program. We've been publishing our Public Hunting Atlas for a long time now, and it's in print form and it's online. So I usually just direct people to that atlas. The online system works really great, but it will list all the public hunting areas here in the state.
That's a good one. And Kyle, we've kind of talked about it already, but, private land, you have to have permission.
Mm-hmm.
And is it kind of a challenge to get permission for private land during our most popular seasons?
It's for all the hunting seasons, it's probably one of the more demanding, most requested from the landowners. The biggest thing, there's always tips and tricks to got going about, though. And one of them is just don't be discouraged if you're told no. It might take you asking a few people to get to that yes, because, family hunts it, already has somebody who's been hunting it for a period of time. But the biggest part of it, too, is I also like to encourage them to go out. I know we're right up to season date now,
yeah.
But go out early and start asking early on before it's on everybody's mind about asking permission, and try to help out that landowner to get that permission. But
now, we did have somebody ask about the harvest difference between private land and public land, and I know Kyle, being the analytical one, self-described, that you've tracked down that number. And I want to toss this out because this is one of the few numbers I know that here in the state of Nebraska, 97% of our land is privately owned.
that's right. And so did a little look at our harvest data, and on average, 7 to 10% of all of our deer harvested in the states come off of public land. So if you're talking 97%, that means only 3% of our land is public, and we're still getting twice that to 3 times that of our harvest is coming off of that public land.
This is one of those things that I don't want to toss out my advice completely because it sounds kind of simple, but you got to go find deer habitat in a lot of places. And what does that look like for white-tailed deer? What kind of spots are we looking for, Travis?
Yeah, so obviously Nebraska is a pretty diverse state as far as environmental conditions, habitat types. Here in the southeast part of the state, deer are pretty good at making a home about anywhere. So, you're looking for timber. The crop fields, those edges are pretty good areas that we look for out here. Even the CRP fields around here, the tall grass, deer are really good at living in those areas, bedding down in those areas. So a lot of it's just getting out and scouting. Trail cameras are really popular. That's a really good way to do it, but you got to put the time in to find the deer. So
now, Kyle, you grew up in mule deer area, within the mule deer conservation area. What kind of habitat are we looking for when it comes to mule deer?
Again, you're looking for their primary sources for them to live off of. They're still looking for their food, water, shelter, and that is all kind of ranged somewhere close. Mule deer, they're typically no more for plains deer, so they'll be more in the open grassland areas typically. You might also see them if we go out west, you start getting to those canyon draws. So anything that can be next to a cornfield with a canyon draw with your grassland area, a little bit of cover there will be very, very beneficial. So the arrangement of a little bit of shelter, not necessarily timber, but terrain, up and down hills, those type of things is what they like to survive on. So food, water, shelter, arrangement, those are what you got to look for and trying to put together a good deer habitat and using that online atlas to find out where all those come together.
And the cool thing about deer is oftentimes even mule deer will have that traditional path back and forth, the deer trail, if you will. And if you can find some of those that are active, the leaves are brushed off of it, you can see some tracks after fresh rain or snow. Awesome. Get where those come together, or several of them do, and kind of pinch through an area. Can be awesome place to hunt. How do you kind of age deer? We do that at the check stations, at the in-person check stations. If you allow it, we look at the teeth, but deer aren't grinning a whole bunch. How do you age deer, Kyle, when they're out in the field on the hoof moving around?
Start looking at their body structure, looking at their legs, looking at their, how filled out they are. Do they look, it just takes time looking at a bunch of pictures, watching deer to get good at it. But typically we're going with the bucks because those are a little bit easier to distinguish. So with the bucks, that year and a half are going to look like, essentially a doe. Then doesn't have much for muscle mass on the front shoulder or on the back, long kind of dangly legs. And typically you're talking about a smaller basket rack if they do even have that. And then year and a half or 2.5 years, they get a little bit more filled out. Their body still not quite, I don't want to say even throughout their chest all the way to their hips, but just more full. And then as the more they age, the more muscle mass they add. And then their backs at that 4.5 will start dipping, start showing a belly, that versus being a streamlined just muscle. So it's just part of the, just looks at a lot of pictures is the best thing I can tell you, and start looking at different age ones you do have. I know it's a very common discussion point on a lot of Facebook pages right now there when you track for all those, how old do you think this deer is, and everybody's playing that game. But there's also a lot of great articles out there from different research labs across the state on how to help do it.
All right, we had a question on, I bought a statewide buck-only tag. Can I buy a unit tag and get 2 bucks during the rifle season?
Regulation states that you can only have 2 permits that allow you to take an antlered deer, so a buck. So you could line it up. If those are your only 2 tags you're buying, that means you have your 2 antlered deer tags, so you would be legal that way to go for it. Just got to be careful, though, when you start talking about statewide bucks, archery tags, anything that allows harvest of an antlered deer will count towards one of them. All the listing of what permits allow to take harvest of certain species, certain sex, is all listed in our guide. Mule deer does, for those, especially those avid mule deer hunters, have noticed those permits have kind of gone down here recently. But we do have some permits that still allow the take of mule deer does. However, any of those are all our antlers only season choice tags in certain areas. I could list them all off. There's a long list. Instead, I was just going to go with the they're all sold out currently. So if you have one, you can. If you don't have one, then make sure you're ready for the next season when it comes around to it, because those usually sell out in that first week or so of the season of those permits being out for sale. Some recent surveys, we've gone out to a lot of different hunters on asking hunter preference. When do you want the rifle deer season? Do you like where it's at? Do we need it moved? Those type of questions. And the recent surveys are showing that 79% of the population that hunts wants to keep the deer season where it's at. And then the other percentage that wants to move it is about split 50-50 before or after. So right now, hunter preference, we do want to make sure hunters are on board with our decisions, and want to make sure if we're going to make any changes that we're not going against the majority and trying to work with them. Right now, hunters are saying they want to keep the season where it's at.
It's one of those things that there are definitely some folks that talk about it every year, but there's more folks, including landowners, that want it exactly where it is. And I think that's part of the reason, part of the tradition it's been where it is. Yep, it's tradition, but it's also what most of our hunters want.
So like you said, it is important to have that paper copy of your permit on you, because immediately after you harvest that deer, you need to invalidate it by documenting the date and the sex of the animal and whether it's a whitetail or a mule deer. So just get that out of the way before you start taking the pictures. Obviously, that's a fun and exciting part of the trip, and easy to kind of get tunnel vision and forget. So just get it out of the way.
And something I'm going to add in there for the pictures as well, Kyle, is make sure you keep your hunter orange on.
Yes.
Make sure that firearm is safe, maybe unloaded, and in the picture's not going to be looking like it's pointed at anybody or anything that's not supposed to. But wear that orange. Be proud of it. Another question that we get quite a bit, Travis, has to do with, okay, now I'm successful. I've got a deer down. I've punched my permit. Now, what can I leave in the field as far as field dressing, or if I've hiked way back into the wild areas and don't want to bring it all out? Now, folks, I'm going to say on private lands, you might want to talk with that rancher, that farmer, that landowner to have an idea of what they may want you to leave out there and where, or if they don't. But there are some regulations on what you can bring out.
Yeah, there are. And like you said, a lot of that goes back to landowner respect and respecting their wishes. But we do have regulations on quartering deer. We don't have any regulations on whether you have to bring the gut pile or where you can leave the gut pile or anything like that. So quartering a deer is defined in our guidebook, and it's one that I get a lot, and I read it from the book every time. So it's defined as quartering is 4 legs with femur or scapula naturally attached and loins. So if you're way out in the back 40, you can quarter that deer before you check it in. Otherwise, you can take the whole thing to the check station or wait till you get home. No regulations on that. So for the firearms deer season, the November firearm season, we do have the 2 options, like you said. And so you can either take it to a physical check station, you can find a list of those online, or you can telecheck it. And you can do that online by calling the phone number, or if you need some help with that, you can call our offices as well.
Kyle, where do we find, the actual check stations? We've got a list of them somewhere on our website at outdoornebraska.gov.
Yep. And that's exactly where I was going to send you, is the outdoornebraska.gov. And up there, the easiest way for me to navigate our website is just to type in check station, and that will pull up, should pull up on one of the first 2 is the actual map to share out your or to find the locations that you're looking for to check in a deer.
On the topic of check stations, we are also doing some sampling of chronic wasting disease still. The Southwest area is the focus of this year, and if you want to, you can take it to a physical check station to have that done, or you can do some mail-in stuff if we still have the opportunity and time to do that. Travis, do you remember what 4 units we're testing this?
Yeah, so they're the MDCA areas. So the Platte unit, the Buffalo unit, Frenchman, and Republican are our focus areas for this year. There
you go. So if you're hunting in those 4 units, you might want to think about taking it to a physical check station and helping out with that research, or getting hold of one of those kits. How do we get a hold of a conservation officer, or if I suspect something's going on suspicious on my own farm? How do I find one of those or get a hold of the right people?
Yes, I like the way you put that. Even if you see something that is suspicious, or maybe you don't even know for sure if it's illegal, give us a call. And our numbers are listed in all of the Game and Parks guidebooks. They're online. So you can try the officer, you can try the sergeant for that area, the captain for that area, or you can use our Wildlife Crime Stoppers hotline, and you can call that phone number directly, or we actually have an online submission form that has been working really well for us too.
Looking at this weekend, the opening of the November firearm season for everybody, a little warm. I mean, across the state, depending on where you are, it's going to be, you know, from basically mid 60s to maybe even some low 70s out there. A little warm for this time of the year. And then after a couple days of that, I think around Monday, it's going to kind of drop. We're going to drop 10, 15 degrees in a lot of spots, some little fronts coming through. So I want to know you guys' thoughts. Are you going to hunt differently on those warm days than you would going into that cool down?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I think if you look at the research, there's a lot of research out there that says the weather doesn't have as much of an impact on deer movement as we often think, but most of us have our opinion on what the deer are going to do when the weather changes. You know, with the warmer weather, I expect, you know, where I hunt, the deer to be moving more at night. Obviously during the rut, it's sporadic, so I think it's good. You're going to have to be sitting all day, in my opinion.
All day.
Yeah.
Kyle?
When it comes to it, I still rely more than just the weather. I rely a lot on the wind to kind of tell me what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Higher winds going to change a little bit where I'm going to hunt versus slower winds. So you get the high winds, you're going to look a lot for that shelter that they're going to look for, whether it's just the other side of the ridge, if it's at into some trees somewhere to get them some embankment they want to go get out of the wind for a while. Versus a calmer day, they might be a little more than willing to go other places. So that's kind of go with it. But then, you know, I'll echo, you know, be out there all day to enjoy it.
Yeah. And that's probably one of the biggest things, regardless of the temperature and all that. If you can, the longer you can sit, the more likely you're going to have something walk past, just because it's that time of year. Yep. What would be your go-to advice for a deer hunter? Travis, we're going to give you an experienced hunter. Kyle, we're going to start with you. What would your advice be to a new or beginning deer hunter?
Biggest advice would be just get out there as much as you can and just experiencing, witnessing what's all going on. Obviously, be safe, wear your orange, have all that gear, but getting out there and just being out there is going to be the biggest help for your future hunts. Just being out there and seeing what deer do, how they react, what they do when you do, you know, whether you're hunting from a tree stand or whether you're hunting from the ground, how do the deer look a little bit different, shooting angles. It's just, the more you're out there doing it, it's the best way you're going to learn.
Good advice. All right, Travis, now for the experienced hunters, because we've got some folks that do it every year, and they've been doing so for, who knows, a couple of decades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll echo the safety. Obviously, that's number one. But, you know, past that, I'd say just enjoy it. You know, there can be a lot of pressure during these few days of the firearms deer season, and that can kind of catch up to people. So just enjoy the time out there. There's a lot going on that you can see while you're out in the stand, while you're out hunting. You know, get new people involved if you can, kids or adults that have never hunted before.
Good stuff. That's right. Remember the process, because we only get to do it for 9 days, or maybe if you're an archer, a little longer than that. But the same token, this time of year goes by pretty darn fast. Lots of pictures, a lot of memories. There's some trophies to be had out there, whether they're for the photo album or perhaps for the dinner table. So, well, again, guys, thanks for being here. Thanks for everyone that provided their questions today that we answered. We hope everyone has a safe, fun, and enjoyable and memorable deer hunt this November firearm deer season. If you have more questions, let us know.